神圣的静默，他是怎样做到的？
Respected Professor David Cadman, distinguished speaker, guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The core teaching of all religion has always been about love. When practicing God's compassion and universal love, one will not bear the thought to harm any living beings, to contaminate the soil, or damage the environment. Since I only have a few minutes to talk, I thought I should share with you an incredible but real example witnessed by many. I've invited a good friend from China, Mr. Zhu Xingfeng, to participate in the conference today. He is an orchard owner and a devoted Buddhist. He has put God's love into practice in harmony farming by respecting the soil, the food, and the sacred silence.
和谐的大家庭一样。
Mr. Zhu owns a 220-acre orchard in Kunming of the Yunnan province in China. It's filled with 84,000 red pear trees. He adopted natural farming method to maintain the harmony of the natural ecosystem. He does not use chemical fertilizer nor pesticide in order to protect the soil and not to harm the insects and the creatures living on it. As a Pure Land Buddhist, he will play CD that chant Amitabha Buddha's name to the plants, insects, and birds. And he will also play different music to the plants according to the changing of 4 seasons. He uses true sincerity to communicate with the plants, insects, and birds. He actually has set aside 3 acres of land as the designated food area for insects and birds only. He communicated with them every single day to request them to only eat the plantation at their designated food area and leave the rest for human consumption. It turns out that the insects and birds are very cooperative. They only eat the plants in their designated area. This picture shows that their area has been much consumed, and the nearby area designated for human consumption remains relatively untouched. This incredible result shows that all creatures have full awareness and consciousness and can communicate with human beings. We can coexist with them in harmony, provided we treat them with sincerity and love. As a consequence, there are now over 500 species of plants and creatures living together harmoniously like a big family in his orchard. Furthermore, Mr. Zhu uses the fermentation process to maximize the value of the food that he planted, which has the effect to degenerate toxins that are harmful to the environment and to treat soil at the same time. A traditional method is used to extract the natural enzyme solution from the red pears. The residual material will definitely not create a secondary pollution. It has an additional function to degenerate the toxins in the soil and underground water. From the experiences of Mr. Zhu's Shanat orchard, we can ascertain that everything in this universe belongs to a single family. Everything is part of a single living entity, closely interconnected. As long as we can let go of selfishness and greed, and use the right means to communicate with each other, and also to treat everything with a sincerity and loving heart, then we can coexist with all things harmoniously and live happily in prosperity with everything and everyone in this universe. Seeing is believing. I would like to extend an invitation to everyone who is interested in finding out more about this project to come to Mr. Zhu's plantation in Kunming, China, and I will do my best to be an adequate host. Thank you.
I take great hope that great measures take small steps. And I would like to tell you a story about a small step I took, which has led me to here. It started in 2008. As many of you will remember, it was not an easy year. I was about to sell my technology company. I was based in Cambridge with a research and technology company. It was valued at 15.5 million. We were offered 15.5 million. And we were 3 weeks from completing on a trade sale. And then Lehman Brothers collapsed. 6 months later, we ourselves were in voluntary administration. It was the most wonderful and releasing thing that has happened in my life. I could have been very rich. I had 49% of this company. But instead, I took a different path. We don't have time to talk about this path in great detail. But it led me to a Benedictine community where I spent 2 years unraveling the illusions, the delusions that I had created for my life. From the outside, I projected a life of success. I had much that most people would have envied. Realizing that I had had nothing, and that on a whim, out of my control, in this case the money markets, you might say random chaos, all that I had built was somehow meaningless. So I spent 2 years with Benedictines. And it is true, I still am with Benedictines. But I chose not to become a monk because I have a simple message. And it's hard to convey within the walls of a monastery. Soil, silence, and service brings the powerful and the poor together through a very simple and deep re-engagement with the land. On my journey, I ended up meditating and giving classes or leading groups of homeless in an ancient form of Christian meditation taught by the Desert Fathers of the 4th century. And I saw in their brokenness my own brokenness. And suddenly I realized that we are all broken, profoundly broken. It is not just the poor, and those without a home, or the vulnerable, but it is the most astonishingly wealthy and the powerful and the influential who are also broken. And my brokenness had happened well before 2008. So for 3 years, I have now been running soil, silence, and service within the walled garden of a monastery. I am very grateful to the community for enabling us sacred land to work beyond any faith. We invite all people. And what has been a beautiful part of this journey has been seeing one of the most wealthy families in Spain sit next to a man who sells the big issue and has no home, and them not being aware of their difference. And over time, I am increasingly aware that it is such a simple message. It is not academic, it is not about religion, but it is about the sacred. And the land will teach us everything. So we have been bringing people once a month for a weekend, for 3 years. We eat what we grow. We spend time in silence. We have sacred food as part of the title of this talk. Sacred food, to me, is silence. It nourishes, and we lack silence. But as we enter into the farm and the walled garden, it's wonderful to see people who have frenetic lives, distressed lives, complex lives, quietly find their rhythm, their inner rhythm. Only by slowing down do we listen. Slavic peasants have a way of putting their finger into the soil and then an ear to the ground. And they hear the murmurings, probings of what instruction they have to look after the land. Native North American Indians also have a great understanding of listening to the land. And both with biodynamics and in all forms of gardens and farming, we gradually begin to listen differently. So we have a very diverse group of people each month who come, some with very little gardening and farming experience. But what I am clear about, rather than us returning to the land as an escape, we must go forward into the land. Farms today have much to teach all of us. We are living in a lifetime of profound inequality. And harmony is an important value. It's an important vision. But if we do not address what in our country has now become endemic, which is inequality, we will fail to listen. So the poor who come are not poor, they are teachers. They bring much wisdom. And the powerful realize themselves. These are simplistic terms, the poor and the powerful. But in this, it means that we have people from very diverse backgrounds. And through the process of engaging in the soil, the humus, we become one. And then there is just community. So each month, we're working the land, we're feeding, we're sowing, and behind all of this are the balanced routines of a meditation and a contemplative Benedictine way. Now, nobody needs to go or attend the offices of the monastery. They're just there in the background. But it is interesting how the balance and the tradition relates to the tradition and the seasons of looking after the land. There are beautiful parallels. All of this, however, goes well beyond any faith system, any religious doctrine. And this is what has become increasingly important as a message. the farms in the UK can open their gates to a very diverse community. And the mental health challenges that we face as a community and the inequality we face as a community will, just in that relationship, bring much good. So it's a call to action. I think we must talk about biodynamics and permaculture and organic farming, and the importance of soil. But please remember that all of these are nothing if we do not reconnect ourselves.
Thank you, Ben. Let's just pause again for a moment. We've talked about the need for finding a new language, a new way of conversing with each other about all the things that we have to do. In the film, we saw the religious leaders identifying what they saw as the devastation we have to face. Then we had the wonderful story of the orchard. It seems a miracle, doesn't it, in our conventional language. But there it is. And then we have Ben's story. Again, quite an unconventional story. And it seems to me that we may be, in these stories, beginning to find the words that we need to develop a language which is, in a way, better known to us. There is a sense, don't you think, when you hear the world and our way of being described simply in economic terms, that you know it's nonsense, but you haven't quite got the language to say so, because the only language which you're offered is the language which has caused the problem. And I know John Fullerton is with us in the audience, and his work on the regenerative economy is exactly along these lines. The need for new language, new ways of describing what we're confronted with. So I'm greatly encouraged by what we've heard, because I have a sense that in this, it is in this that we are most likely to find ourselves and the way of conversing with each other. And I open it now to you to hear what you have to say about it.
It's very important to understand the terminology associated with the word religion. Starting in 1998, our organization have done our best to unite and to work closely with all other major faiths. During that year, in 1998, we became close friends with 9 other major religions in Singapore at the time. The government of Singapore, from the Prime Minister all the way to civil servants, a lot of them shared and witnessed what we have achieved. In the Chinese word for religion, it's 2 words, 宗教. Both have very profound meanings. The first word, 宗, it has 3 meanings. The first meaning is the important one. The second meaning is the main purpose. And the third one is actually the venerated. That's the meaning of the word 宗. Then the second word, 教, it also has 3 meanings. The first meaning is education. The second meaning is teaching. The last meaning is transformation. So from a Chinese language perspective, the word religion, or 宗教, it means the most venerated teaching, the most important transformation, or the most valuable education. I remember Dr. Arnold Toynbee has said that most of throughout our human history, religion is something that's first developed before leading to a civilization. According to him, with the over 20 different civilizations that have existed in our human history, all of them have started with religion. I'm a Chinese, so taking Chinese civilization as an example, there are three major faiths or belief systems that's associated with being the foundation of Chinese civilization. They are the teaching of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. Through different teachings, through different religions, we often see the foundation of the core teaching or the beginning of civilization. Reincarnation, to me as a Buddhist, I understand it truly exists. It is nothing special. It is the remnant of what we have done through our life. It is through our deed that once even we have passed away, we died, our spiritual self still remains. We have heard so much about God loves all people. It is because God understands all of us are one single living entity. We are no different from others. In a very practical sense, I have God inside me, and I'm thinking about God, and God understands who I am, and God knows me. So this selfless love for everything is the appreciation that we are one living entity, and through that understanding, of course, God loves all people, and that's what we should do to everyone else as well. So we are one with God, and we are one with every phenomenon in the universe. The love that's being able to extrapolate from that understanding, from that appreciation, is the true meaning of love.
Come back. Ben, your comment on that, and then we'll take some more questions.
I don't know. It is sometimes liberating to say, I don't know. What I do know is that beyond faith, all life exists. Beyond any religious system. I agree with the Venerable Master that religion was one of the founding structures that societies came together around. But it doesn't take much scratching to see that Christ did not see himself as Christian. Buddha did not see himself as a Buddhist. They were simply people, deeply engaged, deeply rooted, and listening. And I think we have lost the way. We have stopped listening. And that is why I think our relationship to the land is so profoundly important in the 21st century.
Thank you, Ben. Ben said something particularly interesting there when he just said, I don't know. I was talking to a dear friend of mine who's a philosopher about 2 weeks ago who characterized our present age as an incessant quest for certainty. And because we can never be certain, that quest for certainty carries with it uncertainty and fear. So we have become fearful. And the more certain we seek to become, the more fearful we become. So the ability to live with the not knowing and the listening, I think, is very important. Let's take another question. One here, yes?
I'm very grateful to have heard Master Chin Kung's teaching about traditional Buddhism. This teaching has been around for 3,000 years. And through his mouth, I understood this principle. And that's how I decided to use this methodology to try to communicate. Mr. Zhu said that through texts from Confucianism, it mentioned about such method. And as a Buddhist, he will mention the Flower Adornment Sutra. At the very end of that particular Buddhist sutra, it mentioned how a student went through different places and met up, encountered different beings from different species. And he realized that's the teaching that Buddha has been teaching all along, that although we are human beings, we are equal with everything else and everyone else. Every being needs to be respected. So to give you a concrete example of how we did it in the orchard, we set up a series of experiments at first. He remembered most about one experiment is that he will dig corners near a particular tree, and he will actually peg a sign saying either "I love you" or "We are going to fertilize you very soon." That kind of word. And according to him, after 2.5 months, those that have received this positive message, this sign, actually grow much better than the other trees, even though we didn't really fertilize them. And how do we show love to the tree? But they actually received the message anyway. So it's interesting. He would like to share that with you. So to really put it into a concrete understanding, it's that this communication is done through our mind, through our continuous mindset, goodwill towards a particular plant, and the plant will actually receive the message. So it's important to understand the power of our will, and always with a sense of respect for every living beings. Doesn't matter whether it's just a single plant or small creatures that's crawling around. We need to equally respect every creature and every single beings. And we are talking about soil today, so this true respect and true gratefulness for soil, for every living being, it will be felt throughout the world, even though it's a small, tiny mindset, but it can influence great places. Basically, Master said that many things requires education and teaching, and this is no different. The reason why such experiment, if you will, has been conducted and actually become successful, it's because back in 2006, our organization was invited to go to UNESCO in Paris, in their headquarters, to present the Buddhist view about the world and about the current problem. And when we presented our view, a lot of experts actually came to Master, later said that your idea and Buddha's idea is wonderful, but they are not practical. How can you put them into reality? And that's why a series of experiments, such as Mr. Zhu's plantation, was put into motion. Once we see concrete result, and we brought it back to institutions such as UNESCO to present to everyone, and then people started to believe. I think that's what we need to do. Master was saying, we need to do our part to promote, to educate, yes. And that's the only way we can make a difference.
Ben, do you
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, I've got one. We had the vice principal of Unilever's Human Resources Worldwide show a lot of interest in our program, and now wants to bring senior management from across Unilever to take part. And to me, I started my talk about taking small steps. I don't think most are going to be achieved in great, ambitious projects or indeed by governments. I think it will be the small steps. It's the relational engagement. And I think our call to action is to take those small steps today and now. And I think they're seeing and they're witnessing, the Governor of England, witnessing in a simple way what is going on. It does not require academic literature. It's relational. And that is where I hold hope. It's a really important question. In the UK, the church owns a vast amount of land. And I feel at the moment we haven't found how to unlock land as a unifier. Land remains a divider. So there's an irony that I am spending time in a monastery where there are dwindling numbers of brothers, and one of my best friends He is close to the same age as the Venerable Master. He's 96. But this is a sad time in some respects, because there's a great calling, an urge, a surge of desire to find a relationship that is fit by these great faiths. But the religion distresses a lot of people. And behind these monasteries is vast amounts of land. So one of the projects that is coming forward out of the Soil Silence and Service is to unlock land that is at the moment unavailable or has not yet been offered the proposition that these monasteries that now are no longer in operation and a lot of church land could be used to very, very good purpose, bringing people together, bringing mental health challenges, which we hear time and time, day in, day out about, and really transforming our relationship with both community and the land. So that's, for me, one of the actions that I feel needs to be taken. We need to make the land a unifier, not a divider. And that's a big topic for another day.
Venerable Master.
统一联合集合大家。好，师父，是不是先回答这位先生？他说，您刚才的回答是说要多沟通，是吗？
对。
To answer your question, it's actually very simple. We need to initiate as much communication as possible between the civil sector, the civil side of the government, with the faith-based institutions. Only through communication will more understanding be possible. And that's the only way for us to help each other. So initiation of communications through any means will be great. Okay. Master answered like this. He said, from a Buddhist perspective, from the teaching of the Buddha, he told us that everything in this life is illusory. They are not real. So if we have attachment to where we come from or what we are, that's really not the essential question. The essential question is everything we think about will form into the reality we know today. So everything comes from within yourself. If you think something is real, that thing will become real for you. So everything comes from your mind. So by understanding your own mind, you will know that it's not important to find out where you come from.
We have a project of which this conference is a part. It's called the Harmony Project. And it's based in the Sustainable Food Trust, and I'm involved in it. And we are trying to explore harmony as possibly being the basis of the language which would enable us to have a different kind of conversation about these problems. And we're working with the University of Wales, where the Venerable Master has been kind enough to help set up, going to be set up, a number of doctoral scholarships who are going to be looking at this in a lot of detail. And over 3 or 4 years, we hope to develop a discipline of harmony that people will be able to go to university to study in and of itself. So please enroll now for 4 years' time when it will all be ready. There will be more known about this project as we go into 2018. Richard Dunn, who you've already met, is a core person in this project, and the project at the moment is called Harmony in Education. So we want to bring everything back to education. So, but we're going to do it again in the spirit of that which we're seeking to find. We want to work collaboratively. So the whole project is based on collaborating with people in all sorts of different spheres and beginning to have a discussion with them about whether or not harmony, principles of harmony, wholeness, connectedness, diversity, and so on, might be a means of engaging with these wider problems. And we shall draw that material together and publish it.
Master only said something brief. I will elaborate a little bit. He said, why not form a visiting group, doing sightseeing, go to places such as Mr. Zhu's project, and there are many similar projects around the world. Go together, take a look for yourself, and then you will see they are real. And understanding all around.
Ben?
Yes, I wanted to understand the question better. Were you asking about how to communicate with people who don't come from your perspective, from your understanding?
Yes.
Yeah. See, I think this is important. With our project, I'm very mindful that we do not have a situation where if I was to ask everybody in this room, like it happened in the Rupert Sheldrake talk just before, hands up who has food boxes delivered to their doors. You know, majority all put their hands up. You know, this is a converted audience already. You are speaking to the converted. I'm working with bankers, with financiers, with people who have no gardening skills whatsoever. And that is the important piece. We have to speak beyond our silos. And it's difficult because now, with social media, we are being reinforced the language that we want to hear. So you follow on Facebook or Twitter those communities or individuals that you like or you're interested in. So gradually, what you are seeing is a mirror coming back of your own values. So ironically, we are becoming more insular than we are becoming global, I would argue. So you have to counter that. So switch your phone off. I think the Venerable Master touched on it earlier. I think the letting go of the self is a very important part of most religious or most spiritual paths. And it's a disengaging. And then we have many different languages to describe that. The letting go of the ego. The prayer to the inner heart. And I think this letting go enables us to see the world separate from ourselves. And in fact, in doing that, we become more engaged and more loving. When we hold on to it, we step into the void and the chaos in our own heart and minds, which is a reality for everyone. But it is a daily practice to step back. You have to let go. And then you begin to see. I can't say more.
Master mentioned there is a very important lesson that's been passing down from the Chinese ancestor, and it goes like this. In order to resolve any problems and to resolve any difficulties, we must emphasize education first. So whenever we encounter a difficulty in life, it could be as big as a world problem or as small as a family dispute. We need to understand, are we willing to learn? If we are willing to learn, then we can begin to appreciate a lot of the dynamics that's associated with the difficulty. And if we understand the situation, then we can teach. So while we learn, and through learning and teaching, we help to change ourselves and everyone around us. And that's how the Chinese ancestor taught its offsprings to resolve problems. The program that Professor Cadman mentioned earlier about the harmony course, it is Master's hope that in the future, this PhD program can comprise of at least 25 people. 20 of them should be students from different faith, and everyone learning together, people from different religion, different faith learning together, they can appreciate the commonality and understanding the diversity. And it's his hope that through such a teaching program, and when the students graduate, they can go out and let people understand the differences, the various different problems that we may have can be resolved through working together, no matter where we are or who we are. To answer your question briefly, Master mentioned it's important to communicate. He has been stressing that we need to initiate more communications by letting more people understand what has been done, what has been achieved, they can gradually appreciate what they need to do. Master mentioned that with the new government, the new leadership in China, he is hoping that things will change. It is seemingly at this moment that the new Chinese government, they are willing to embrace the more traditional values than before. He sees that as a good thing. By embracing the traditional way, more people can benefit from the wisdom of our ancestors.
Thank you very much. We've come to the end of our time. I would like to end with a period of silence as we began. But before we do that, I would like to thank the Venerable Master and Ben for their thoughtfulness and care with which they have spoken and tried to answer people's questions. So thank you to them, first of all.